thanks everyone for your interest in this training session. So I'm going to focus on digital community engagement, how to organize a crowdsourcing contest. Some of you may be very familiar with this concept. Fan has been with Seshting, and I believe some of you may have heard about this crowdsourcing concept before. But today I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into how exactly our team organized a crowdsourcing contest. And I declare no conflicts of interest. And here's the outline of my session. So I'll very briefly introduce the concept and why it's important to think of this community engagement concept when you are doing public health work or related interventions to your target communities, and then introduce what is crowdsourcing, as well as go through what are the steps of a crowdsourcing contest, and then I will elaborate using an illustrative example so that you could have a better idea how this is organized, a little bit more hands-on experiences. Since this is the last session of the day for the conference, so this session will be is scheduled to 25 minutes, and I will try to keep it within the time frame. But if it goes beyond a little bit further, I hope you don't mind, or you could, if you're hungry, you feel free to have your dinner in front of the computer. Why or what is community engagement, first of all? So basically, community engagement means involving those affected in understanding the risks they face, and involve people or your participants in response actions that they are acceptable. So basically, it's the process of working collaboratively with or through the groups of people, for example, shared with same geographical area or shared interests or situations to address these issues affecting the well-being of those people. So the goals of community engagement are to, for example, build trust, create better communication, and eventually improve the overall health outcomes among those people of your interest. So the other question is, why do you think community engagement matters? I hope you can type your answers in the chat box. Yeah, to know their opinions on the upcoming activities from Zozo. Any other opinions or responses to why do you think community engagement is important? Come on, no more responses? Or you can speak directly. Yeah, Fan says because the services are ultimately for the community. Very good point. And Prepan says sense of ownership and more active participation. Exactly. And Joanna says because change starts in the community itself. Brilliant. These are really good points about why community engagement matters. So basically, I call it a sprint. So very briefly, community engagement basically can help you establish trust, rapport, and partnership with the target community, and it can help you develop more responsiveness when you develop those interventions and solutions for solving a health problem. So it can help you as well as help you be more inclusive of the community voices and empower them in your health programs or your health services development. So eventually it can help you build trust and make your solutions more acceptable to your community. And then the A stands for better appropriateness, culturally appropriateness, and effectiveness of your campaign or intervention. And we have done RCT, randomized controlled trial, to evaluate our crowdsourced interventions before, and it's proven that it's more it's non-inferior in terms of the effectiveness, but also culturally appropriate, because these solutions are developed through the community. And what is crowdsourcing? So basically, crowdsourcing means having a group to solve a problem together and then share the optimal solutions widely with the public. There are very different formats of crowdsourcing activities, but in this session, I will just focus on the most commonly used crowdsourcing activity, which is open contest. And obviously, previously, our open contests are often organized in a hybrid format, and both online and in-person activities are organized. But because of the COVID, we're shifting most of our crowdsourcing activities online. But it doesn't change much to the overall stages of a crowdsourcing open contest. So basically, we have this has been published in a WHO practical guide, and you can Google that. Basically, we have 7 stages of organizing a crowdsourcing contest. So first, you will find a problem and then decide whether crowdsourcing is an appropriate approach for you to answer that question. And then you will organize a community steering committee group to sort of set up rules and spearhead the whole contest. And then when you get through those steering committee rules and develop the open call file, and then you will try to engage your community to contribute ideas and submit their stories or submissions to you. And then after you receiving those submissions, and you will get to start to evaluate those contributions, because eventually you will want to find those optimal solutions among all those submissions. And after selecting those finalists and exceptional submissions, you would want to recognize their contributions. So basically, it's not just the finalists that you want to recognize, but you also want to accommodate those other submissions who made or who contribute their ideas and experience to you. So basically, you don't want to discourage people to be further engaged in your future crowdsourcing activities. And then after selecting those finalists, you will share these optimal solutions and share back to the wider community and try to implement if that's possible, and you have the resources to implement those solutions. And at the last stage, we usually will evaluate the open contest. I will get back to this later. And now I would like to ask you, what are the strengths, because there are many other participatory activities to engage the community. For example, you can do in-depth interviews or you can do focus group, but why are you interested in using crowdsourcing, and what are the strengths compared to interviews and focuses? Please write up your responses and send it in the chat box. Wider range of idea. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. Oh, we have more people joining. It's great that we have so much interest from the group, from the floor. Um, but would you mind, because these activities are recorded, and one of our trainers, Joe Tucker, has only a couple of participants in his room, and he's feeling really lonely. So I wonder if some of you can shift to his room, and don't worry about this. This will be recorded, and you can come back later. I would appreciate that if you are interested in organizing digital trials, you can go there and you can come back later to this recorded session as well. Yeah, I'm getting more responses from the group. Diverse opinion, yeah. Feasible and doable ideas are likely to emerge from the community. I just want to gather or see more when I host this session to have more organized responses. Just don't want to miss anyone. Yeah, feasible, doable ideas. Yep, support. All these are excellent responses, and so basically, compared to the in-depth interviews and focus groups, it's obviously sometimes more cost saving because you don't need to arrange travels for doing focus group or interviews, and it can involve such a wider community without the geographical boundaries. And you can do either global crowdsourcing open contest or national level without traveling all over the world or all over the country, and someone talked about greater engagement as well. That's the broader group of audience in this crowdsourcing contest. That's true. And it also needs some level of generosity of sharing resources and information. So actually, some of the stories are very personal and sensitive to some degree. But so when people participate in this kind of crowdsourcing contests, they are very generous of sharing their own stories in terms of wanting to make positive changes to this community or contributing to how to improve the health or to improve the services for their own community. So these are the very common strengths of organizing a crowdsourcing open call. And in terms of when to use, usually this is appropriate when you're interested in soliciting a diverse set of opinions, stories, solutions from the group. So if you are interested in only one specific person, for example, President of Trump, in terms of his experiences of running a country, so that's probably not appropriate using crowdsourcing, because that's a specific person that in which a interview might be more appropriate. And also, if you are interested in finding more creative ideas from the group or from the target community, then it may be good to use crowdsourcing. And also, if you're aiming to, for example, decentralize power from the top level to the grassroots communities, then it's a good way. And also, if you want to, for example, aggregate different ideas and then achieve some sort of consensus of a specific group, or some developing some consensus in practical guide, then it's a really efficient and rapid way to solicit a different set of ideas for developing this consensus. So this is a example that I want you to get participated. I would like to use this example of soliciting APACC participant experiences and opinions to improve conference organization. And I would like to ask to you, is this a legitimate question that you can use crowdsourcing to solve? And then how you would, how should I improve the problem framing in your idea? You can speak directly. So first of all, does this sound a good problem to solve using crowdsourcing? Would you like to turn on your microphone or typing the chat box?
Hi, Dan. Yeah, I think crowdsourcing would be a good strategy to use for this kind of problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but for a specific group of people only, like what they said on the chat box, the participants of APACC.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is there any way to how do you think we can improve this question? Or is this we should go directly and use this would it be better to, for example, improve in terms of conference organization? Should we think of some other ultimate goal? Okay, so it looks like it's a legitimate question too. I can't think of any other questions, but if anyone agrees, we can move forward from here. And the next, if you can recall, the next step will be organizing a steering committee. So first of all, why do you think we need a steering committee here? Can you type your responses in the chat box? Or a little bit more background. So when you think of organizing a steering committee, what do you think a steering committee should do in terms of organizing a crowdsourcing contest? Any response from the group? Do you want to, for example, do you want to set up the contest rules? For example, the overall purpose. So if you are interested in soliciting APACC participants' experiences, do you want to set up an overall purpose? Or in terms of the experiences, what are the specific subtopics or specific experiences you want to focus on? Yeah, this problem should be asked only to participants, of not necessarily best strategy. Okay, I'm sorry, I just saw this response. So it should be more cost and time efficient. So to validate, so I guess Sozo is responding to why SC is needed to validate to responses from the respondents and to select out the most appropriate responses. Yeah, that's part of it. Any other reasons why a C is needed? No additional responses. So so I just mentioned so the contest rules need to be set. Yeah, I got another from Propan to brainstorm the idea and the interest of the participants and the new scientific development. Yeah, So in terms of a steering committee, yeah, that could be. So that could be one of the issues, or one of the things that could be discussed by the steering committee. For example, what you want to solicit, and what are the most relevant interests of the participants in terms of this crowdsourcing open call, and how do you develop the general structure of the open call, etc. And apart from that, usually we would also, after determining those overall purposes and subtopics to focus on, we would also be very clear about what specifically we want to ask from the audience. So as well as the entry formats. For example, do you want them to take an image, or to send textual submissions to you, or do you want them to send audio or video? So be very clear about the formats. And usually these formats are made pretty easy. We want the participant to feel comfortable creating these entries using these different artistic formats. So to just encourage them in participating in this event. And also the steering committee will be thinking about designing an incentive structure or price structure to encourage participation, as well as, for example, would you think of designing a evaluation criteria or judging rubric, so that you will be able to evaluate your submissions using those predefined criteria. And also, the other thing I would like to stress is that you will need to create a lay language call for entries, which is super easy to be understood by the public, because very often your target community might not be specialists or have very minimal amount of expertise in that area that you're asking, because the public are usually there is a knowledge gap or information balance. So you want to make your call for submission really simple and really easy to understand. And I could actually, there is a example. I don't know whether I can. Okay, I think it's coming. Yeah, here is the example call for submission that we are currently doing. It's about soliciting personal stories about viral hepatitis. So we're basically just asking very personal stories, as well as using very simple lay language, and making the title and the language very participatory and engaging, and put your most important information at the very first page of your call for submission. For example, the purpose, the groups that you want to focus, who are eligible to participate, and your deadline, example. So, and then followed by these details that they may want to read further if they are interested in participating. And in terms of selection of SC members, just remember it's very important to people often come to these pitfalls because it's easy to neglect those target groups, those beneficiaries or stakeholders when you're organizing a steering committee, and it's really important to engage those neglected group or those target group representatives in this steering committee group from the very beginning, so that you could integrate their voices when you are designing this crowdsourcing contest from the very beginning. And you would also want a diverse backgrounds. For example, you could have different experts in different disciplines. You could have someone from the public health, someone from clinical science. For example, for this APACC contest, perhaps you could select those steering committee members from different disciplines like basic science, clinical science, preventive science, implementation science, etc. So those 5 major domains of the APACC conference. And also you may want to consider research areas. For example, do you want someone from the HIV community, someone from the viral hepatitis or mental health, COVID-19, etc., etc. And you may also consider different levels of experiences. For example, if you want to hear the voices from the senior researcher or junior researcher or student researchers, because they may have very different experiences of participating in APACC conference, as well as the demographic backgrounds. You may want to ensure equity or strike a balance between different gender or sex or age, location, etc. So just think of a steering committee that may have a diverse backgrounds when you are organizing a steering committee group.
I missed the beginning of the session, but I would like to ask regarding the platform that you use to make this outsourcing contest. It has to be quite a stable platform so that the people joining it would be able to assess it without and much technical issues, correct? And if the platform, is it very costly for the platform to manage the platform? Thank you.
Do you mean the platform hosting the call or the platform disseminating the call? I will actually touch base on that in my later part of the presentation. Maybe I can respond to your question when I finish this session. Does it make sense?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the next stage is how do you promote your contest online? So first of all, you need to be clear about your focus population. For example, if we're doing this APACC contest, the focus population will be very clearly the conference participants. But then the other question is, how do you reach them? So this is related to what you have just asked about the platforms. So usually the digital platforms we are using are very diverse. So we think of any ways that can help us promote the call or spread the message to the participants. For example, can we use the conference forum or the conference portal that we're using in accessing this conference? Are there any interactive forum available in that website that we can potentially reach the conference participants? And also, are there any, for example, social media platforms that are being used by this conference that we can potentially use to reach those participants? And also, and another channel might be the email that you may be able to use to disseminate the call. And another very useful resource is your networks. For example, when you are spreading your message, you can leverage your networks. For example, you can reach out to the conference organizers, Quincy and other organizers to help you spread the message through their email listservs, because they have the whole list of participants of this conference. They can spread the message in one click or in one single email to the whole group of participants to the conference. And will you be able to approach those speakers who may know that who are also attending this conference, as well as any other possible resources, networks that you can possibly reach so that they can help you promote the call. And in terms of hosting a call, open call, usually we would establish a website. We can host that. For example, the example that I just showed about the viral hepatitis open call, that's a partnership with World Hepatitis Alliance, and we established those open call, and that's been hosted by their website, which has a lot more reach of the global audience, and they have a specific no-hep website hosting this story. So it doesn't have to be a single website, or you don't have to create something new, and you can just leverage what resources that you already have that can help you leverage or help you host this open call information, And how do you receive the entries? Usually, we think of channels that are relatively easy to be used by these participants. For example, for the conference participants, can we just send a survey link, or can we just use the survey link that has been embedded in the conference platform, so that people can just click in and submit through a sort of a survey form? And can we allow submissions through email? We can just provide an email and allow them to submit their submissions via an email. Or can we create for example, a social networking app account, so that we can allow them to submit their stories or experiences very swiftly, for example, through a WhatsApp group to us. And also, if they have a very large file size, can you create something, for example, can you create a Dropbox link or Google Drive link, so that people can drop their submissions in those links? So these are common ways that we have been using for receiving entries. And the next stage is, how would you evaluate your entries? Will you create a evaluation criteria and scoring system? So basically, what we usually do is to create a evaluation or judging rubric, and then score those submissions based on those different domains of a judging rubric. And in terms of creating a judging rubric, what might be the most important thing, or the key domains in terms of designing this? So usually we would consider, because the submissions could be really different, and the problem is how can we maximize the fairness and transparency in terms of evaluating these very different submissions. So basically, we usually have several domains that are essential for you to look for in terms of achieving the ultimate goal. For example, this APACC contest would be improving the APACC conference organization. So basically, for example, you can look for the relevance of the submission, whether this is relevant to the subtopics or the overall purpose of this open call, or the clarity or elaboration of a experience, whether this is clearly explained or easy to be understood and without any confusion by the judges, or does it, the other thing you can consider is the sympathy, or whether this is shared by other participants, whether it's a common concern among other participants. And also, another domain that you could consider is the capacity to change, or capacity for impacts, whether this is feasible or whether this is easy to change in terms of improving the conference organization. So that are the common domains that we will consider in terms of judging the submission. And usually we will organize several rounds of judging. For example, 2 or 3. We would firstly, the organizing committee will screen the submissions in terms of eligibility, and then we have a couple more, for example, having a crowd judging or expert judging to score the submissions. for better fairness and transparency. And usually we would have, for example, 2 or 3 independent judges to score the submissions using those predefined criteria. And also the next stage will be recognizing the top entries. You offer them prizes and commendations and share those solutions to the wider group. For many community participants, like sharing their experiences and empower them is a more powerful or more appealing approach to recognize their stories, because many may actually not care about cashes or gifts, but they care more about the community, and they want to share their own experiences in terms of changing, making better change for their own community. And the next is, what do you do with the exceptional entries? Obviously, there's a lot you can do. First, you can disseminate and sharing the stories, exceptional stories or experiences. For example, for this conference experiences, you can share the participant experience to the organizing community, the conference organizers in terms of making changes or improving their organization. And you can also engage finalists if they're like exceptional ideas that can be embedded or that can be integrated into next APACC conference. You can engage them to, for example, to design something for the conference and use their finalist submissions for the next conference. And then for some other related topics, you can use this to generate guidelines. For example, our team has used a hepatitis contest to solicit community experiences, which are eventually integrated into a World Health Organization hepatitis testing guideline as a good best practices cases. And lastly, you can also think of implementing the solutions or developing into a intervention to your target community. So our team have developed those crowdsourced HIV self-testing packages and eventually use that in improving gay men's HIV testing behaviors. And the last stage is, how do you evaluate your contest? Or the common areas that we can evaluate our contest is how much engagement that we have created through this open contest. For example, how many people viewed and how many commented and how many responded, submitted to our contest. So these are the engagement metrics, and these are often they can often be obtained through using those online websites. We can see those responses or data through the websites. And the other thing you can do is to actually do some analysis of the content that you already solicited. We have analyzed the qualitative content of the submissions. For example, we organize those contents into different themes. We have published a lot of these crowdsourced stories in peer-reviewed journals. And the last one, this image is actually crowdsourced through an open call in promoting HIV testing among gay men in China, and we assess the effectiveness compared to a market-driven or expert-driven HIV testing approach, and it's been proving that it's non-inferior in terms of the effectiveness, but a lot more cost-saving compared to the expert-driven approach. And lastly, I would like to share some open source information. This is the practical guide that's been published in WHO TDR website. You can Google this and it will just pop up. It's freely available for you to use. And we have also created a free website for people to use, which provided step-by-step guidance for you to organize a crowdsourcing contest. It's called Crowdsourcing Clinic. You can also Google this. It will come to you. And if you have other questions related to crowdsourcing contests, you can just email me. And that's all. And I know I've been used up all this time and taking a lot more time than expected. Thank you for your attention.